Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to a new video. So what we're actually doing in this video is starting on the Kilmat, or the sound deadening on the inside of the STI. Now, if you guys have been following along, I've already done the trunk down in the spare wheel well area, as well as the trunk lid and a little bit on the top area inside the trunk. And we also did the rear seat on the bottom. Initially, when I started this project a while ago, I just wanted to do the trunk just to help with some resonance and some noises. The more I did it, the more I realized I wanted to kind of move towards the interior a little bit, not go overboard and go insane with it. But I have so much left over just from the original box that I got, which is over there. I figured I would at least kind of venture on the interior, kind of help with some of the road noise and the overall resonance. And plus, it's going to help make the stereo sound much better. Not that it doesn't already, but we all know STIs in general are a pretty raw, loud sounding car. You hear a lot of road noise, you hear a lot of the engine and transmission noise. It's just a loud experience. But don't get me wrong, that is part of the reasons why the STI in general is so great. That raw experience, all those noises that you hear, is part of the fun. So I'm not looking to drown that out completely. I just want to add a few inside the interior of the car just to kind of help a little bit, like I said, with the stereo and just a little bit of the road noise, make it a little bit more of an enjoyable experience. Plus, if you've never done sound deadening on the door cards or the doors, closing the doors is such a satisfying feeling. It's a much heavier thud as opposed to a little bit more tinny sounding. My favorite car to close a door on is actually a G-Wagon. Not to say that this is going to sound like a G-Wagon, but if you've ever closed a door in a G-Wagon, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It is the most satisfying sound ever. But like I said, I'm not going for a G-Wagon sound. Obviously, that's impossible. But I just want to add a little bit on the interior, on the door cards or on the doors, just to kind of help a little bit. So here is the product that I use. It's called Kilmat. I got it from Amazon. It's just this one box. It's about 50, 60 bucks or so. I'll link it in the description below. But you get 36 square feet of this. Now, keep in mind, like I said, I've already done the full trunk. The trunk is pretty covered, as well as the trunk lid and the interior on the rear seat on the bottom. And I still have this much left over. It's pretty insane. Now, I'm not covering every single little piece of interior or metal. I'm just hitting key components and I'm not going crazy with it, but I'm definitely putting enough down to cover a decent amount of the actual bare metal. But as you can see, I have a pretty decent amount left. I want to say it's probably, I don't know, 15, 20 sheets or so. And I forget how much I said that I used on each part of the car, but I think on the trunk, I used about 5 to 6. On the rear seat down here, I think I used about 1.5 to 2. So you really end up not using that much since you end up cutting it up, putting in the smaller pieces in certain areas and everything. So it's really easy to have that much left over. Now, some people literally rip out the entire carpets, do the entire actual chassis, like the actual underneath of all the carpet. Some people take out the roof liner and do all that. I'm not going that crazy, I promise you. I'm pretty sure just doing the door cards, as I'm going to be doing in this video, is the extent that I'm going to do. I think I would be plenty happy with that, and I think it's really going to help. So let's go ahead. I'm going to start on the passenger rear door here. It's very simple to remove a door card. It's literally 2 screws and then a bunch of clips. And then on the back side, it's just a couple cables you need to release, which is pretty straightforward. So I'll show you how to do that just in case anybody is curious, and then we can get started installing the Kilmat. All right, so here we are. We're on the passenger rear door. Now, to remove the door card, like I said, it's very simple. It's literally 2 screws and then a bunch of clips around the bottom and the sides. So what we're actually going to do, there's a little cover there and a little cover here on the inside of the door handle. Kind of see it. Same kind of thing. All you're going to do is take a small flathead and then go in that little groove right there. And then just pop it up, really simple. And as you can see, there is a Phillips head right there. So very straightforward. Same thing for this one. I'm just going to pop it. Let's see if I can do it while holding the camera. And I can. So pop that little cover off. You see the little screw there. Take those out. And then usually what I do is actually get a pry tool. You can actually use your hand as well if you want to. But I start on the bottom right around here. Kind of get in there, and then you could just pull it loose, and then you can basically take it off. Now, there are cables, like I mentioned, and also some wires back there for the window switches and stuff. All right, so we got the screws out. Now I have my pry tool. I'm just gonna use the pry tool right in this area right here, get some leverage so I can get my hand behind it and then pop it out, and you'll see exactly when that happens. So let's go ahead and remove that, and then I can show you how to remove the cables behind there. All right, so we got the door card release with all the little clips and stuff. So basically it just hangs there because there's a little lip on top that it sits on. You can kind of see it right there, the little metal lip. So now what we're going to do, I don't know if I can do this one-handed, but just kind of lift it up. And then you can see behind here. Now, again, this is gonna be hard to film one-handed, but there is the door cable as well as the lock cable. So you can kind of see it in the back here. So there's a little bit better angle. You can see the top one is for the door lock and the bottom one is for the actual handle. They're just held on by some plastic clips and the little metal ball right here. So all we're gonna do is just pop them out. And then there's one connection right here for the window switch, and we'll be able to remove it entirely. All right, so this is what the doors look like with the door card removed. It is not the prettiest thing. As you can see, there's just a bunch of this plastic here, and then it's just held on by some really sticky sealant. So what we're actually going to do, I'm gonna look around and see where I'm gonna place this. Now, there's a big hole right here. Now, what you need to do is just peel that back. It's not a big deal. If it rips or anything like that, you can literally just stick it right back up when you're done. So it's pretty easy. But I'm gonna go around and add some in key areas. I'll probably add some up here. I definitely wanna add some around the speaker as well to help with some of the sound from the stereo. If you guys aren't aware, I run the Kicker speaker upgrade. It's an OEM option that you can get. All speakers, tweeters, and the rear sub as well. Absolutely love it, sounds great. It's not as good as the HK system, but it's definitely a worthwhile modification if you have the base stereo or the base model. So let's go ahead. I'm gonna peel all this plastic back and then we can get started on the actual Kilmat. All right, so here's a little bit closer look with the plastic removed. Now you can't remove it entirely. You could if you want, but you would have to rip the little holes that all the wires are through. So I just kind of peeled it back to where I need to get to. So I'm gonna put some in here on the actual door. This is actually the skin of the door. Put some up here. Again, in that little hole, there is a little bit of whatever this is, foam, that maybe is kind of sound deadening, but it doesn't really do anything. So like I said, I'm gonna add some around the speaker. So let's go ahead. I'm gonna cut up a few pieces, put them in the main areas, and then we can get to rolling. Now this time, if you guys didn't watch on the rear seat, I did not use a heat gun, but someone actually recommended using a heat gun because it softens up the actual adhesive on the back of the Kilmat, and it's much easier to roll out. So I'm definitely gonna use a heat gun on this application, so it's a little bit easier to get installed properly. So let's go ahead, let's cut up some pieces, place it in the general area of where I want it, and then we can get to rolling. So we got it applied. Now keep in mind, like I said, I don't plan on covering everything. I just wanted to get it in some key areas. So I did it around the speaker right here. Also, you want to keep in mind, you don't want to cover any holes. Also, you don't want to put it too far this way because once you put the door card on, you don't want it to show. So you want to make sure that you kind of stay on the line of where the door card is on the inside so you don't see it. I also put some on the inside in the actual skin on that side right there. And also keep in mind, you don't want to put it in places where you're not able to reach to actually roll it out, because otherwise, if you just leave it like this, it's not gonna do anything. You actually need to properly roll it out to make sure it's installed properly and it actually is doing its job. So now what I'm going to do is get the heat gun, heat it up, roll it out with my roller as best as I possibly can, and then we can move on to the passenger front door. Probably in this video, I'm probably just gonna knock out this door and the front passenger. I don't wanna bore you guys too much. I may pick it up in the next video with the other side, but my main objective for this video is to at least get the passenger side done so we can actually compare between the two sides in the sound and everything. So let me go ahead, let's heat this up and start rolling. All right, so we got everything rolled out. Everything looks good. Man, the heat gun was such a good idea. It was so much easier to roll this stuff out. I got it so much flatter on the doors than I did pretty much anywhere else. So I might actually revisit the trunk as well as the back seat area with the heat gun, and kind of roll out some more. Just be really mindful when you are using the heat gun, especially when you're doing it on the inside, on the door skins. You don't want to heat it up too much because you're actually heating up the metal on the other side. So if you're rolling and it gets really hot, you can do some damage. It doesn't really take that much heat to actually get it pretty soft. So just make sure you're really mindful of how long you're holding the heat gun there. This thing gets pretty darn hot. There's different settings on the back actually that you can put it up pretty high. Also, when you're not using the heat gun and you're rolling, make sure you're pointing the heat gun away because there's plastic, there's wires, there's foam, there's stuff that can easily kind of melt and catch on fire. So again, be mindful, be careful. Just make sure you don't do any damage. But everything is rolled out nice and smooth. Everything looks really good. I'm really happy with that application. So now all I'm going to do is just put everything back on, and then we can do a little test to see if there's any sound difference overall just by closing and opening the door. I really don't expect it to be that drastic just because of how much I actually used, but there definitely should be an audible difference, at least for me in person. So let's go ahead, get all this back together and test it out. All right, everything is back. Everything is good. Super simple. Obviously make sure when you put all the clips in and the screws and everything that the door handle as well as the lock is actually working. And it is, I made sure. But let's take a audible listen to see if there's any difference in terms of the thud. Now I didn't do it before, but I'm gonna open that one and see if we can tell a difference. So here is the Kilmat door closing and then opening, closing. And then now let's do this one, which is not done yet. So obviously pretty hard to tell on camera, and the door sizes are a little bit different, but I definitely can tell a much heavier thud sounding on that door compared to the front. Off camera, I actually went in and closed the door to see if I can hear it on the inside. And then I opened the driver's side rear door and compared them back and forth. And I can definitely tell this definitely sounds much more beefier, a bigger, nicer thud sounding. It sounds much more quality actually. So that's really nice. That's just a byproduct of doing the Kilmat. It just definitely feels more put together, more solid. So I'm happy with that alone. And anything else that comes from it is just a plus. So I'm really excited to see how the entire drive feels and sounds with everything done. So I'm gonna go ahead, let's jump on the front passenger door. I'm not gonna walk you through it like I did with the rear here. I'm just gonna put a time lapse on it so you can see me getting it done. I'm probably gonna use a little bit more. I use 1.5 sheets on this door. I'm probably gonna use a full 2 sheets on the front doors because they're a little bit bigger. There's more area to cover. So let's get cracking and get this done. All right, so we got the passenger front door complete. You guys kind of saw there wasn't as much area as I thought. It was actually almost less than this door. There wasn't as many places to put it, but I just went around, filled it in where I thought would be best, just to kind of help with it a little bit. But let's take a little bit of an audible test. Again, this is not a really good representation on camera, but let's hear it out. Definitely a much heavier thud, as I mentioned. Same thing with the rear. It just feels more put together when you're actually closing it and opening it with your actual hand. So it's definitely noticeable right away. Obviously, the real test will be when I go out for a drive, if I notice anything different. I haven't driven this car in 2 months, so there's gonna be a lot of noises going on that I kind of forget, but I'm sure I will notice the decrease in sound overall. I've been driving this car for 5 years, so I know every little sound, every little noise that this thing makes. So I'm definitely looking forward to taking it out for a spin to see if there is a big noticeable difference. Now, one thing I will mention, a lot of people always want to do this because they want to cut down on the drone of their exhaust. One thing that I noticed when I just did the trunk, in my exhaust setup, it really doesn't drone that much. So it wasn't a huge difference. But I will say it doesn't really cut down on the overall exhaust noise. It maybe cuts down a little bit, but what it really does is actually cuts down on the actual road noise. And obviously, like I mentioned, the stereo, it helps it feel a little bit more put together, a little bit more solid. So don't expect the exhaust to be quieter in cabin. It's still pretty loud, at least for my setup. So let me just do a little comparison just so you guys get an idea. Again, it's not really a great representation on camera, but let's do the 2 front doors so you get a little bit of an idea. So here is the passenger that is Kilmatted. Now let's go over to the driver's side, see if there's any difference. So a definitely noticeable difference, at least for me. It may not seem like that big of a difference on camera, like I mentioned, but in person, for sure, definitely a difference in feel and overall sound. So I definitely recommend it just for that reason alone. It just feels better. But yeah, I mean, that's all I got for you guys. I'm going to clean everything up. And then next video, I'll probably jump on the other side. I'm going to be doing some truck mods in the next video. I have finally the new Morimoto 4-banger fog lights coming in. I've been waiting for those things for almost a month now, a little over a month, almost 2 months actually. So I'm really excited to get those things in, but we'll probably jump on the driver's side in another video, getting that knocked out so you guys can see it. But yeah, guys, I will leave this link below if you are interested in picking up some Kilmat. 100% recommend it. It is awesome stuff. Like I said, this whole box was like 50 or 60 bucks. So definitely worth it. It's not a really big investment. Obviously, it takes some time and some effort to get it done. But it's just one of those things that when you put the time and you invest in it and you really put the effort in to install it properly, and it's just the details that matter, the small things, everything just gets put together and it just overall feels like a better car, sounds better. It's the small details. I'm really big on them, obviously, if you guys can't tell. So that's all I got for this one, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions about the Kilmat or anything on the STI, please let me know in the comments below. But in the meantime, keep it clean, keep it simple, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.